It ain't never been like this. I don't care what you feel. It ain't never been like this. It has never been prophetically like this. You can be seated. It's never been prophetically like this. Now, if you lose your train of thought or you lose your attention, I have to make you stand up again. But thank God, I believe you can just keep your train of thought. Say, it's never been like this. There are times and then there are times. There are seasons and then there are seasons. There are moments, but then there are moments. There are those times, seasons, moments where everything is destined to change, where you cannot ever truly get back to where you were. Now this is such a decade. You know, Americans, especially Christians, we live so much in a singular moment. We live right now in the right now of the right now of right now. We want it right now. We don't want it tomorrow. We don't want to pray. You know, Peter prayed for 12 days and prayed and preached for 12 minutes. Now we preach for 12 days and pray for 12 minutes, and that's the reason we have so many failures. We want everything right now. But God, you see, exists in an eternal vacuum. There's only one reason for time, and that's for you. And God set time. He set the stars in the heavens. He set the moon and the sun. He made them for a divine encounter. He made them for you. He did not make them for himself. And after all, this is not the year 2015. That's the Gregorian year. That's the Babylonian year. Does anybody want to come out of Babylon? You're hearing a whole lot about Iran, right? If you were here Wednesday night, I started a message called America the Beautiful with a question mark. For the 2 weeks before that, I taught you what's actually going on regarding radical Islam. And the longer we stick our head in the sand about it and refuse to call it what it is, it will continue to dominate the world. Now you just saw Boko Haram, in Africa, who we've been fighting against in Sudan for the last 20 years, and you've made it possible for us to go unlock the chains. I told you, it's radical Islam in the north versus Christians in the south. This is the global jihad. It is on. In the last 10 days, you've heard not just preachers, you've heard politicians of all stripes, Democrat, Republican, Independent. You've heard all three of them. I have them recorded if you'd like to hear it. All three of them use the terminology World War III. You have Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of the people of God. You can call it the nation of Israel if you want to. You can call it what it is. I will bless those that bless you, and I will curse those that curse you. Period. And you've heard, and so he came. Only the third time in history that a man has come and addressed joint sessions of Congress. And why did he come? He came because there's a deal on the table that our government has been negotiating, that although they are so transparent, they have refused to share with anyone. So it takes the prime minister of Israel to come across the ocean, get in front of the joint session of Congress, and there declare what's in it. Now, have you noticed? That was Tuesday. This is now Sunday. Have you noticed no one from the government have raised their hands and said what he said is not true? No one. Why? Well, because they can't. Because it is true. And that's why we're not being told. You say, well, you seem happy about it. I couldn't be happier about it. I've heard news commentators, I've heard educators, I've heard doctors, I've heard philosophers, I've heard politicians. I'm just waiting on the preachers to step up and say all the pieces are in place for the most cataclysmic event to transpire that has ever happened on planet Earth. And there are preachers who are making a whole lot of headway by being as negative about it as they can. Well, that's what the Jewish sages said would happen. They studied this thing out, and they said in the Hebrew year 5770 through the Hebrew year 5780, which is our 2010 through 2020, it is ayin. That's the word for 70. It is represented by two eyes. It gives us the indicator that this is the most prophetic moment that has ever transpired since Jesus of Nazareth walked on this planet. What is aligning in the heavens has only done so 7 times since Jesus walked the earth. This will be the 8th time. We are halfway between those 4 red blood moons, a tetrad, one at Passover 2014, one at Tabernacles 2014. The next is coming up April the 4th. That's why I'm calling a worldwide miracle service on April the 3rd, because as April the 3rd becomes April the 4th, the 3rd in a tetrad of lunar eclipses is going to take place. A lunar eclipse. How many of you have an alarm clock? If you're here this morning, you had an alarm clock, because that whole thing changed, right? And you overslept an hour, but you didn't, because you had an alarm clock of some kind. God has an alarm clock. His alarm clock is set to go off by divine indicators which pronounce to us that we're about to enter into a divine encounter. In other words, God's about to do something. We're halfway through this decade. We're at 2015 or 5775. We are right now at the moment where a choice has to be made. When you get halfway, there is a choice that has to be made. And I just want to encourage you right now that regardless of how far away your promise seems, you are halfway there, and it's just as close to your answer as it is back to your promise. I'm preaching for somebody right now. I said, I'm preaching for somebody right now. Man, this is a week we celebrate Purim. Everybody say Purim. Purim. It is the most celebratory day on the entirety of God's calendar. It is the day that God said, before you even get to Passover, where I Pesach, where I put the blood on the doorpost and the lintel, before you even get to 2014, which is where the blood was applied and the door was open, when you get to the 15th day of the first month, that's the day that you step over the threshold and inherit the promise. But he said, before you even get there, I want you to throw a party. We ought to be having the party of the ages right now. If Christians had any spiritual understanding, if we had any prophets in the pulpits instead of puppets, the Church of Jesus Christ would be experiencing her finest hour right now. We ought to be seeing more tumors disappear right now than we've ever seen. There ought to be more joy right now than we've ever experienced. You say, how can we shout when you just told us World War III is on the way? Lift up your heads. Your redemption draweth. God is not appointed due unto wrath. The Antichrist is the greatest world leader you will never know. I dare you to get on your feet and as loud as you can shout, he's coming. He's coming. When the world is dying and the moon is bleeding and the seas are seething under the whiplash of fury to spill their dead in the lap of God, there are a people shove somebody and tell them God's moving. Shove somebody and tell them God's moving. Tell them right now, say, don't look to the left. Don't look to the right. Don't look below you. Don't look behind you. Don't look in front of you. Look up. Your redemption. An angel's coming. An angel's coming. Brother David Fry, Elder Marion Schrock, Elkhart, Indiana. There's an angel coming. Can I just take my preaching time now? I've already blown it. Throw both hands up, shut yod hey. Shut yod hey. Shut yod hey. Now shut ayin hey. Hayin hey. Hayin hey. Hayin hey. Hayin hey. Shout 15 or shout 75. Either one you want, because you're halfway there, baby. You getting this, elder? All right, be seated now. Be seated now. Jesus. 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 I know you got preachers selling books and making movies and doing whatever they doing, and that's all right. I'm for everybody. I'm not against anybody. But the fact of the matter is, at a Chayin Hay 75 or Yod Hay 15, God says you're halfway through the decade that the Jewish sages declared there will come. I didn't say, some preacher said. I said the greatest minds in Judaism have prophesied for hundreds of years that when 5770, that decade, 2010, that decade gets here, there will come a release from Yahweh. Yod-Heh-Vov-Heh, Yod-Heh-Vov-Heh, Yod-Heh-Vov-Heh. There will come a release of such prophetic insight, such prophetic revelation. God will reveal himself in such a way. Do you know that in the book of Esther, which we celebrate Purim, we celebrate that this week, 2 days ago, 3 days ago, Purim, before the feast of Passover, Pesach, and then unleavened bread, and then first fruits, and then Pentecost, and then tabernacles, and then Day of Atonement, and Rosh Hashanah, and Yom Kippur. Before we celebrate all those, God said, I'm going to put a feast in front of the thing. And I'm going to put a little book in your Bible called the Book of Esther. Esther's Hebrew name is myrtle. The myrtle branch. The myrtle branch was one of the branches that was placed in the lulav, that was waved at tabernacles when God said, I'm going to come tabernacle with you. I'm going to come sit down in the midst of you. You ain't going to have to ask nobody if I'm there. I'm going to show up. And he said, at that time, you grab that lulav and you begin to wave it. He said, wave it in front of you. Wave it behind you. Put Esther in front of you. Put Esther behind you. Put myrtle in front of you. Put it behind you. Put it above you. Put it beneath you. Wave it to your right hand. Wave it to your left hand. Why, God? He said, because in the book of Esther, I was veiled. But when I come to you this time, I'm coming open-faced. Somebody throw your hands up and shout, even so come quickly. Lord Jesus, Now give him a great big hallelujah. Welcome back. Better get your children in, he's coming. Better watch what you're preaching, he's coming. Better watch how you're living, he's coming. Somebody wave the lula. Come on. Somebody's got something in your past you need God to show up and deal with. Somebody's got something that's supposed to be under your feet. You need to notify the devil. Somebody needs to give him a wave praise that brings him on the scene. Somebody trying to attack you from the front. Wave that lula. In the book of Esther, God's name is never even mentioned. It's the only book in your Bible. God's name is never mentioned. Purim is acknowledged in Scripture as the most festive time. In fact, it's the only day of the year that the Jewish people are commanded, you ready, to get intoxicated. Now, the first thing some of y'all backslidden folks' minds went to is you could get back to your 40 or 50 depending on race. But I read in my Bible, these are not drunken, as you suppose, seeing it is but the third hour of the day. This is that which was prophesied by the prophet Joel. Your young men shall see visions, your old men shall dream dreams. And upon my handmaidens and on my servants shall I pour out of my spirit. Somebody just go ahead and take another drink. You get intoxicated enough, you get enough alcohol in your system to kill the germs. You get Holy Ghost intoxicated enough, your wife will start looking better than your secretary. You get drunk enough, you go to giving everything you got away. You get drunk enough, everybody will start looking good to you. Everybody will be your buddy. You get drunk enough, you want to fight everything. I'd rather be with somebody that wanted to fight everything as placate with everybody. Shove your neighbor, thumb your nose and say, I got a fighting spirit. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal. They're mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, the casting down of imaginations, every high and lofty thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. Here's what he said: I'm the head and not the tail. much time I got? Take it. So, touch somebody and tell me, it's never been like this. I don't know how people sit in church like this. It's Purim. It's time to celebrate. Did you notice? He had them celebrate before the blood was applied. Here's what they celebrate, that Myrtle, that Esther gave up herself so that Haman, wicked, devilish, mean-spirited, ugly acting, selfish, self-centered, self-exalting Haman could get hung on the very gallows that he had stretched out for the people of God. You want to know how prophetic we are? Well, you'd have to know your Bible. Your Bible, King James Version, as Book of Esther, calls him Ahasuerus. Ahasuerus. King Ahasuerus. He had a wife named Vashti. Had a wife. He got tired of her, searched out in the whole kingdom, found Myrtle, found that Esther girl, got her all ready. Now the king had a dream. Haman had a dream to kill Mordecai. Mordecai was Esther's uncle. Mordecai it was that told Esther, you go in and self-sacrifice and God will deliver every single one of us from the hand of the king. But he was not Ahasuerus. You get that? He was Xerxes. Oh, now that's another thing, because Xerxes is commonly known as the king of the Persian Empire. Who was the king of the Persian Empire? Also the king of Babylon. They are one and the same. This is none other than ancient Babylon, ancient Persia, which was in your newspaper, on your television set this week as Iran. Now joined with Boko Haram, pledging allegiance, the Saudis, the United Arab Emirates, Jordan must come into an alliance with Egypt and Israel. It's a strange world. Iran is currently fighting ISIS in Iraq. We are currently fighting ISIS in Iraq. But we are not fighting united. Do you understand? Because this is the conflict that began with Ishmael and Isaac. It will continue until the culmination of all things. The Middle East is dividing itself at this very moment into two sectors. Those sectors will separate. One will join together with a 200 million man marching army coming down out of the Orient, joining with the former states of the Soviet Union, now Russia. They will invade Megiddo. They will march toward Jerusalem. They have already vowed the destruction of the Zionist state. They have declared, we will wipe Israel off the map. Can I submit to you, you cannot negotiate with a madman. What a madman understands is a bigger stick. And we've got one. My God, there came a rejoicing spirit. Okay, I'm having too much fun. You say, but how can you be excited? He died to give it to you. Dr. Dupree, you've studied the book of Revelation from chapter 1 to the last sentence. Am I telling the truth? It's coming. It's not coming. He's coming. Go get your beanie weenies if you want to. Go hide in a mountain if you want to. I'm going to run to the top of that mountain. I'm going to start shouting. Even so, come quickly, Lord Jesus. If you're born again, it's okay to buy beanie weenies. Leave them for the people that'll get born again after the rapture. I got to let you go now. I got to let you go now. I got to let you go now. Only one feast. Give me my chart, Sarah. Give me my chart out of that new book that nobody's got their hands on yet. Give me my chart. Help it, Joanna. There it is. That's I think that's on the second page of the book, Divine Encounter, celebrating God's calendar, celestial clues, and the culmination of all creation. Spring rain, fall rains. Everything God did with the people of Israel, He did on an agricultural cycle. You notice that there are two major divisions, spring and fall. Within that, you find three major divisions. Passover and Pentecost, which happened in the spring, 50 days apart in the fall. Tabernacles, Feast of Trumpets. Look how the one at the end begins. Feast of what? How does it begin? Feast of what? Trumpets, 100 trumpet blasts on Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, the Jewish New Year, the second Jewish New Year. You'll have to get my book to understand it. God's calendar has 2 New Years on it. You didn't think you'd have a Babylonian calendar that would equal his. I mean, everything the counterfeit is, the real is double. Okay, just sit there and look at me. God doesn't start the calendar once a year, He starts it twice a year. I said He starts it twice a year. He doesn't run it by the sun, He runs it by the moon. And people that want to be negative and people that want to run to the hills and buy the beanie weenies, that's fine, because the Jewish sages said you would. Because that decade is characterized by 2 eyes. When that prophetic insight comes, God says you have a choice to make. You can choose to be negative about it, or you can choose to be positive about it. And God says you make the choice. Many are being negative about it. I've chosen in that decade, according to the sages, to make my choice to be positive about it, because all I can find is the Bible is good news. All I can find is a God that answers prayer. All I can find is a God that's accurate to His word. And here's what He said. He said, historically, I'm going to fulfill Passover when I give my son Jesus on the cruel cross of Calvary at what you call Easter, which is a Babylonian celebration. You ought to call it Resurrection Day. And then I'm going to follow that up 50 days later with the Feast of Pentecost, or the Feast of Weeks. 7 times 7 Sabbaths of days plus 1 is 50. That's a jubilee. You do understand that only 7 times since Jesus walked the earth have there been a tetrad of 4 red blood moons falling on Passover and Pentecost. The third one is coming up on April the 4th. That's a reason on April the 3rd, when that thing gets accompanied that night by a red blood moon, the third one in the 4 tetrad, I'm going to have a celebration around here. Look what it said. So 50 days later, this is not only for the 3rd and 4th of 4 red blood moons that have only happened 7 times. This is the 8th. That means new beginning. Are you in the building with me? That means God's going to do something in this one He hadn't done in any of the others. I can't get no help in here. I said that means God's going to do something in this one He hadn't done in any of the others. I'm going to try one more time. That means God's going to do something He hadn't done since Jesus. And God set his watch in the heavens, and he said, it will not happen again if I tarry the coming of my son. It will not happen for another 500 years. That's the reason you're living in a moment unlike anybody you've ever known or will ever know was permitted to live in, a moment of divine intervention, a moment of angelic intervention, a moment when God is going to shake everything like the rat terrier shakes a mouse, where he's not going to leave any stone uncovered. What a time to be alive! Look at this. Pentecost was fulfilled on the day of Pentecost, was it not? There came a sound from heaven as a rushing mighty wind filled the house there the city. There appeared unto them cloven tongues like as fire. Yes? And it filled the house, not the upper room. Read your Bible. Tabernacles. That's the only one. It happens in the fall of the year, separated by a long distance from the other two. It's been a long time since Calvary and the day of Pentecost. It's been a long time. It's been a long time coming. I said it's been a long time coming. But I like what Dr. King said. How long? Not long. It don't matter now how long it's been. It just matters how long it's going to be. And it's not going to be long. I can tell you right now, the signs in the heavens are all lined up. The Feast of Tabernacles will transpire. The fourth in the tetrad of red blood moons that began Passover in 2014 will transpire on September the 28th of this year. That is the only feast that has not been fulfilled historically in the earth. What does that mean? That means it begins with the Feast of Trumpets on Rosh Hashanah at the head of the year on September 28th with 100 blasts of the trumpet. Now fast forward in your Bible to 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. The dead in Christ shall rise first. When? When the trump of God shall sound and the dead in Christ shall rise first. Now there it is. Are you saying Jesus is coming on September 28th? I don't know. He may come before we get out this building. I just want you to know everything is in place. I said everything's in place. All right. Now let me show you. That's in. Look. Nisan, March and April. That's when Passover takes place. Feast of Pentecost takes place April, May. Tabernacles, September, October. You can find the exact dates in the book. Get it. It took me 3 years to write it. Get it. It has never been more significant than the moment that you and I are living in right now. Now God said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to release 7 anointings during Pesach, Passover. I'm going to release 7 anointings right now, God said. I'm not going to give you all 7. I'm going to mention 1. There will be released. I'm prophesying, having support of the Word of God. I'm not prophesying out of the wind. I'm prophesying out of the Word. I'm prophesying to you what He said would come to pass. He said, you with me? He said, I'm going to send 7 anointings during Pesach. During this feast season, I'm going to release 7 anointings into your life that are not available at any other time. Now just gently shove your neighbor till their teeth rattle and say, I need you to know your angel's coming. He already bought his ticket. It's already been stamped. He's already been directed out of the pavilions of heaven, and he is coming with purpose. My God, shout, he's coming with purpose. Let's see. How about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane? Father, if it be thy will, I don't want to go into this Passover. Father, if it be thy will, I don't want to put my blood on the doorpost and the lid on that old rugged, cruel, angry, rotting, rotten, mean beam called Calvary. I don't want to do it, God. If it's possible, let this cup pass from me. But whatever, God, don't let me die here. Don't let me die here, because if I die here and I shed my blood here among these rocks, sin will forever rule the crazed hearts of men. God, you will be forever a liar, and nothing, there will never be any holiness. I got to get out of this garden, God, and I can't do it. I'm scared to death. He said, I'm scared to death, and I'm already bleeding, and I can't leave my blood here because I have to go to that cross. I can't die here. I got to get there, God. I got to get to Passover. And you know what God said? He said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. It is Passover, and historically I have always sent a specific angel on a specific assignment. Read your Bible. While Jesus is praying till his sweat becomes great drops of blood, Patty, God himself dispatches an angel, and the Bible said that angel ministered strength to him. The church couldn't do it. Do you understand? There's a moment in your life when the preacher can't get it done and the church can't get it, but God. If you need an angel to come into your situation, jump on your feet and shout now. You need strength. You need encouraged. Shout, come on. Come on, I'm ready. Be seated. Okay, mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. Okay, how about the Apostle Peter? How about the Apostle Peter? He's in prison, and the church is praying for him, and he's still in prison, and they're fasting, and he's still in prison. But Peter gave an offering. I can show it to you. At Passover, and the moment he gave that offering, though the church couldn't get it done, and praying couldn't get it done, and fasting couldn't get it done, and all the disciples couldn't get it done, all of a sudden God saw that offering on the altar, and your Bible said though he was in the midst of 4 quaternions of soldiers, he had 16 Roman guards. He's chained by the feet and he's chained by the arms, and all of a sudden God dispatches a great big angel that shakes the jail cell and spits him out a free man. I dare you to shout, my angel's coming. Here's one for somebody and I'll quit. Hezekiah. Somebody's trying to interpret a tongue right there. Hezekiah. King Hezekiah, his father, Hebrew king, had done away with the celebration of the Feast of Passover. Like modern religion has done away with the commandments of God and traded instead their traditions. You with me in here? So then, Hezekiah receives a prophecy. You're going to die. What did he give him? 3 days or something? Anybody remember? 3 days. I don't know everything, just some things. 3 days. Hezekiah, you get your house in order. You're going to die. Nobody's shouting. You're going to die, Hezekiah. And your Bible said that at Passover, wait a minute, I thought you said his daddy, the king before him, did away with the Passover. He did. So Hezekiah now turns his face to the wall and reminds God, my daddy destroyed the Passover, but when I became king, I reinstated the Passover, and here's my Passover offering, my Pesach offering, my resurrection offering. And the Bible said that God spoke to him again and stayed the hand of death. And he said, I'll tell you how powerful a Passover offering is. It will realign God's clock. He said, Hezekiah, look at the sundial, and it turned the thing back 12 degrees, 10 degrees, which is 15. I'm here to tell you, God will move heaven to send an angel to meet your need if you just obey the command of God. Somebody shout yes. Shout, my angel's coming. Now, if you don't need an angel, just be real quiet. If you don't need angelic intervention, don't say anything. If you don't need an angel to show up for your children, just be real quiet. Joshua said, you want to enter into the promised land? The 15th time his name is mentioned. 15th. Joshua gives command to the children of Israel of how to enter into the promised land. And God sends an angel to defeat their adversaries so they can walk in. This is serious business to God. Serious business. This is not something dreamed up, schemed up. This is the divine oracle of God, that during this season we gather together, our Pesach, our resurrection seed, and we come before God at this appointed time during the year, not just with our tithe, not with our regular offering, but with that commanded offering that comes only 3 times a year. You come. You don't come, Leviticus 16:16, empty-handed. Okay, everybody just wave a hand like that and say, thank you, Jesus, my angel's coming. Now reach in front of you and get an envelope. Get it. Now listen. Listen to me. God is already moving. Do you know that exactly 1 year ago, gasoline was $98 a barrel? $98 a barrel. Do you know what it is today? It's $46 a barrel. Wow. It's dropped in half. Do you know what that means? That means every gallon of gasoline you pump is $1 less than it was a year ago. That means you make $10 for every 10 gallons you pump. That means you make $20 on every 20 gallons you pump. That means you make $100 on every 100 gallons you pump. And do you know that not one politician has attempted to take credit for it? Do you know why? Because there's no explanation for it. There's no explanation for it. You notice they're not trumpeting that. They're trumpeting all kinds of stuff. But they're not trumpeting that because they don't control it to begin with. Do you know that that means to the average family in the United States of America this year will save $2,000 on nothing more than the gasoline they're pumping anyway? God just put $2,000 in your pocket. If I was you, I'd thank him for it. Because if you'd lost the $2,000, if gas had gone from $98 a barrel to $160 a barrel, you'd sure be making that known before God. So why don't you make known before God that every good, every perfect gift cometh down from the Father of lights?